Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Baseball Podcast. It's the second of the week. I am back. I'm going to have some comments for James Grande here in a second, who, while he did admirably fill in and beggars can't be choosers while they're out doing other things, still have a bone to pick with him. I will get to that in a second, but I want to talk to you, Matt Selz, at the Selzman on Twitter. It's been about a week or so now since I've last seen your face here on the stream. So, one, I will say it first, glad to be back with you. But two, how is everything going for you?
Oh, not doing too bad. Watched an electric LSU Wake Forest game, winner take all in the semis of the College World Series last night. Scoreless into the bottom of the 11th. It was amazing. Doing pretty good. Yeah, it's entertaining to me though that you're now back and Grande is himself on vacation at this
Yeah,
point. So
yeah, it's something where this guy just gets so much time off that he gets to go do it. He gets to go on these elaborate trips. He's got these friends that get married, and he gets to go to these places. Yes, this is not a virtual background. I am on a semi vacation. It is another one. Yes, I get it. He's not wrong. I do take a lot of trips, so I mean he is right. But no, he's now on vacation. So I hope one thing that always goes unnoticed that I always get to hear when I tuned in before I jumped on the plane, I downloaded the pod that y'all did. And I was like, I'm going to listen to this on the plane. I made it the first minute in. I was like, I'm just going to get trashed the whole time. So I'm just going to fast forward through these first couple minutes. Let's get into the analysis and stop the James trashing me in my player friendly contract that I have working here.
I did give you credit for a lot of vacation days for all the hats you wear. So
yeah, I get it. I mean, there's a couple different things involved, but yeah, I mean, I got my time off. I work hard for it, so I'm going to take it. But like what I was saying, one thing I never hear come out of James' mouth is, I hope Colby has a good time. All it is that I'm just not here. So you know what, James? When you're listening to this, I hope you have not only a good time, but the best time on this little vacation that you have here. I hope it's wonderful. Can't wait to have you back. But I'm glad that I get to be in this chair next to you, Matt, as we break down what has happened here. And we have to start with the injury news that tanked a couple of my sports bets here. I live in a state where I can't bet. I am traveling in a state where I can. And the Shane McLanahan injury wrecked me yesterday, as I had McLanahan 6+ strikeouts and the Rays to cover, neither of which happened. He left with an early injury. They're calling it mid-back tightness. We don't have a lot of kind of news on that yet. But Matt McLanahan, front runner for AL Cy Young, been absolutely dominant this year, double-digit wins, sub-2.5 ERA. Actually, sub-2.25 ERA because he was down. And I think he was leading the league in ERA too. So we don't have, like I said, we don't have a big timeline on this, but fantasy managers and the Rays, what is going to happen here if McLanahan has to miss some time?
I don't know at this point. Like, how many bullets can the Rays take and still keep going? Like, think about the pitching that is on the IL right now for the Rays, or that has just come back from the IL, right? Because
it's an all-star rotation, on the IL.
Yeah, like Glasnow just came back not that long ago from being injured and missing time. You've got Drew Rasmussen is there. Who the heck is I'm blanking on what?
Springs.
Yeah, there you go. Springs. Like, that's a stud. That's a stud IL rotation. And yet somehow they keep winning in the AL East, and nobody can really figure it out. I'm not as concerned with this one as perhaps if it was an extremity. Like, back tightness, okay, but maybe he got worked out wrong. Maybe he tweaked it in the bullpen session and it didn't really loosen up. So they may give him an extra day before his next start, but I'm not sure it winds up in an IL thing for him.
And it's one of those things, too, where if it were like a Clayton Kershaw back injury, one, Kershaw's a bit older, two, chronic back issues. We're going to put a little bit more weight in that. But like you said, it could have just been unfortunate stroke of luck, just tweaked it a little bit. And it sounded like if you watch the clip where the manager went out, it did seem like he was trying to lobby a bit to stay in. He wasn't there, shaking his head no, kind of, not what's the word I'm looking for, like moping around. He wasn't necessarily doing that. He seemed like, but he also could have just been like, hey, I'm okay, just let me finish this batter and then you can pull me. But, we don't know. But it at least seemed, the body language at least should be somewhat optimistic. Again, he's not moping. He's not kicking the dirt, not throwing the glove. He's not dropping 4-letter words after 4-letter words into his glove. It seemed like he was at least trying to lobby to stay in a bit.
Yeah.
So
It's always a good time when they're lobbying to stay in. So
yep.
I'm not as concerned with this one as we have been with other Rays issues.
Yep. And we'll want to keep an eye on the timeline for McLanahan so that way fantasy managers can prepare potentially for his absence or just make, short-term arrangements if he's only going to miss a start or if he even just gets pushed back a couple of days. But Matt, on the other hand, there are a couple notable returns looming. Jazz Chisholm is on his rehab stint. I do believe in his first rehab game, he did play 7 innings. So it seems like he should move through this fairly quickly. Carlos Rodon, we may actually see him, believe it or not. There's still plenty of time for him to re-injure something. So we'll have to see how that goes. But he looks to be about 2 to 3 weeks away because they want to get his pitch count up to about the mid-70s, I believe, what I saw. And then in Detroit, Tarek Skubal coming back from left flexor tendon issue to get up to 52 pitches in his last rehab outing. So if they're going to go off of the mid-70 count, he may only need one more. So to me, Matt, Jazz Chisholm is the one that I'm most excited for the return here, just from the fantasy perspective. Power, speed, fingers crossed for the batting average that it comes up a little bit. But of these 3, which ones are you most excited for to return?
Well, personally, I have Jazz Chisholm on
Same. That's why
on my home league, and
Yep.
I have both Chisholm and Judge both out, so my power and speed are taking some hits here. But the Miami lineup has been doing really quite well, so I'm hoping that between Arise still hitting around 400 and Brian De La Cruz hitting pretty well. You got a few other, Jorge Soler, let's not sleep on him. He's got over 20 homers at this point. I'm hoping he's going to get some pitches to hit is what I'm hoping for. And then he does what he should do with those. So I am most excited about his return. In terms of pitching, I don't know. I'm waiting on bated breath to see if we actually get Carlos Rodon in pinstripes at any point this year, because given the injury updates we've gotten from the Yankees recently about, Judge might be a week, he might be a month, he might need surgery, he might not, it might be a season, it might not. I have no idea what to believe with Carlos Rodon at this point, and whether he's actually over it, or if the training staff can keep him healthy, because there's a lot of soft muscle, soft tissue injuries going on with the Yankees, which is usually a training staff problem. So Skubal was actually looking pretty good before he got hurt. So we'll see, but it is the Tigers, and nothing really excites me about the Tigers this year.
I think when it comes to Carlos Rodon, I think you can just insert a heavy sigh afterward. It's like, Carlos Rodon, yeah, he's on my team. The start would be nice. Maybe 2. A couple strikeouts would be cool. Been waiting long enough for this guy. So I would just be cautiously optimistic with him. Like I said, remember he said he pitched through it last year, and we've talked about it here before, more so with hitters coming back from wrist and injuries like that. But there is a difference between healthy and healthy enough. And that's where we're going to have to see where Rodon falls in that list there. But Matt, you do great stuff with the prospect report, the prospect rankings here at Fantasy Alarm. So if you haven't seen all of Matt's great prospect work, you have to check that out at fantasyalarm.com. But Matt, a couple guys want to talk to you here because it is Friday. So we're down on the farm for Farm Fridays with Matt Selz at the Selz Man on Twitter. So Matt, let's start. Big name pitching prospect came up. Gavin Williams made his debut. A little bit of a mixed bag, almost completed 6 innings. Not bad, getting deeper into the game. 4 strikeouts, 4 earned runs. We saw his 4-pitch mix. Only a 19% whiff rate and didn't quite get as many swings out of the zone as you would like. But from his time in the minors, we've seen that the upside in the strikeout department is there for him. So how high are you on Gavin Williams for 2023 and beyond?
For this year, I told people in my prospect report this week that you should add him in all formats. Everybody needs pitching. He's going to be in the rotation going forward, given the Tristan McKenzie injury we talked about last pod. This year, though, if you're expecting him to be an ace caliber ad, that's not what's going to happen this year. He's getting his feet wet in the majors. It's still a pretty big jump from AAA to MLB to set guys up and get strikeouts and whatnot. But going forward, he's a number 2 starter. He'll be probably in a number 3 role because they've got 2 pretty good ones in front of him, and Bieber and McKenzie. But he's got number 2 starter stuff going forward. So this year he'll probably pitch to like an SP4 for fantasy. And then next year I would expect him to be, another tick above that, maybe burgeoning on an SP2. Depends on what the rest of the AL Central's offenses look like.
Yeah, and Gavin Williams is a guy too. Like you said, Adam in all formats, very good. And yes, so what? He didn't dominate in his debut. Not many do. It's a very hard game to play, so there's still a ton of upside there with him. And who knows if Cleveland ends up making a move, aka selling somebody at the deadline, his spot in the rotation that's probably already secure. There, any concerns of him getting moved out at any point have to essentially be negated if Cleveland maybe moves on from one of their top right-handers, aka Shane Bieber.
Yeah, I'm less convinced that they're moving him now. I don't remember what his contract status is, but I don't believe he's a free agent at the end of the year. I'm less convinced that they're going to move him now because the AL Central is still pretty wide open. Like, if they get hot, there's really no reason why they can't go win that division.
Yep. I think you're right, but you never know. I mean, there's still time leading up to the deadline. A bad week or two. They could do what the Reds have done and go on a tear, or they could go on a skid like Pittsburgh has done, lose a bunch, and just become sellers. So there's still plenty of time for the deadline. I'm looking forward to our trade deadline pod, by the way, when that comes. That's going to be a
trade
fun
deadline is August 1st, by the way, for those of you who don't remember when it is this year.
Yeah, that will be a fun pod for sure. Another name that's come up in prospects stars, we talked about him before, and it's only been a couple of starts since we last talked about him, but his name's getting thrown around. I've seen it pop up in the Discord a little bit. Kyle Harrison with the Giants. The strikeouts are very, very good. We've talked about that. And in June, though, his 6 walks through 13 innings, not great, but maybe it could be seen as an improvement for him based on where he was prior. It's a tough thing because the shiny new toy, we talk about with that meme, right? The fancy prospect, here's me looking at them and like a sure thing is kind of over here. What do we make of Harrison? Is this something where like the strikeouts are great, but until he harnesses this command, they're not calling him up? Or is this a thing when he does get called up, just because the strikeout potential is so immense, we have to add him? Like the big thing I'm trying to weigh here is the juice worth the squeeze with Harrison, knowing that I'm probably going to get 3 2/3 of every start, 3 walks, 3 earned runs, and 6 strikeouts. Like the strikeouts are good. Nothing else is all that great. Like what do we make of Harrison here specifically for 2023?
How excited are you about Blake Snell?
I don't really like roller coasters.
Okay. Well, the stat line you just described from Kyle Harrison is Blake Snell, right? I mean, in addition to both of them being lefties. I thought coming into the year that Kyle Harrison could push for a rotation spot in spring training, and then control issues. Like he started kind of banged up, right? And then control issues have cost him. It's not that he's not pitching great. He's striking guys out. He's just not pitching efficiently because even when he strikes them out, it's not on 3 or 4 pitches. It's like a 7 pitch at bat. It's full counts. It's, then he gives up a hit or a walk. Now you got to add more pitches to your pitch count. So if he could figure out how to pitch efficiently, there's no doubt that the Giants would call him up. They're in 2nd place in the NL West at the moment. So it's not like they're out of the playoff picture. They're in a highly competitive division, and let's not forget the 3 wildcard spots that are available. If he gets called up soon, maybe the juice is worth the squeeze, but I don't think he's getting called up soon. I think they need him to show that he can go deep, because why are you going to call up a guy who's going to use 6 innings of bullpen every time he starts? Or 5 innings of bullpen every time he starts? Why are you going to pencil in like a bullpen day and then try to make it through the rest of the week without touching a bunch of your bullpen? Like it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So for those of you who are super excited about Blake Snell starts, you can go pick up Kyle Harrison. For those of you who are like, oh wait, that's what I would do, is I would just wait right now.
So a guy like Harrison then,
going forward, if he can control his stuff, he has frontline starter upside. There's no doubt he could be a number 2. Do I think he's an ace? Maybe. Like the Giants haven't really gone with a traditional ace for a while. right? Like Mad Bum in his peak is about as close to a traditional ace as they got. And if you look at his stats, it still wasn't like incredibly ace-like, right? So for me, he's got like, number 2 starter stuff if he can figure it out.
Mhm.
But like if his whip was high because of hits and home runs, I could brush it aside because of it's the PCL. Everybody gets hit. It's not a good pitching um league. But it's not, it's walks. It's self-induced. So that's a problem he's got to sort out.
With with a guy like Harrison, then like when Blake Snell is on, he's on and he's
Right.
very good. But like another kind of inconsistent, erratic lefty that comes to mind to me is like a Reed Detmers type. Like he
Yeah.
seems the type that's always like 5 1/3, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts, and everything's okay from there. So is Harrison kind of like when he's good Blake Snell, but when things are off, he's in the more porous version of Snell and the Reed Detmers category. Then is that kind of where you kind of see him falling in?
Yeah, you could also toss, and I know Sandoval doesn't necessarily fit, but you could throw Patrick Sandoval into that. Like a guy who has the stuff, but it doesn't always click. So we'll see. I mean, Harrison's still relatively young.
Mhm.
He's, this is his first full year at AAA, and he did start a little a little slower. So we'll see. I'm not saying that the guy's done because he's had one bad half a season at AAA. Um, but control issues are definitely a problem.
And then in this week's prospect report that you did, I was reading through it, and one that was very interesting to me was Colt Keith. So he is a guy that you talked about this week. I'll let you kind of expand upon him a little bit here, but is he any chance for a 2023 call up, or are we more so looking at 2024 before we see Colt Keith in the bigs?
I would say 2024 at this point. To me, there's not really a lot of point for the Tigers to call up, who is, in my estimation, one of their top 2 prospects. Um, he's doing well. He's lighting up the ball. He's slashing 322 at this point with 14 homers, 47 RBI, 42 runs, and a couple of steals. But that's double A, right? So you'd at least, I know we've seen a rash of people skip triple A, but for the Tigers, I don't think it really makes a lot of sense. Could you see him get to triple A this year? Yes. Finish the year at triple A? Yeah. And then push for a roster spot in spring or early season next year. I think that's the timeline for Colt Keith. And if you need an intriguing, middle infielder, with some nice pop, Colt Keith is a guy who not a lot of people are paying attention to.
Yep. So he may be a guy that's available in some dynasty formats, and you said he's got a little bit of pop. So 2 things: if we see him get promoted to AAA by the end of this year, that in theory increases his chances that he could earn a starting spot with the club to break camp with the team next year. Then, correct?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
he'll get an invite, I would assume, to spring training, right? I mean, he's going to be on their 40-man roster. He would get an invite, and then it'd be up to him to get, push for the playing time to break camp. But his chances certainly increase if he gets a half a year at AAA before going to spring training next year, or lights the ball up in the Arizona Fall League, which we've seen him do before as well.
And then at his best, so maybe not his rookie year, but at his best at the big league level, what do you see him kind of as? Like is he a 10 to 15 homer guy? Is he a 15 to 20? Where does the average come in? Can we get any speed? What do you kind of see from him at his best?
I'm not going to see a lot of speed from
Mhm.
him. He's a fairly big dude, and he's got average speed at best right now. So, his value comes from an above average hit tool and plus power. Okay, so above average to me puts him at about a 280 average in the majors, right? And plus power, if you assume that average home runs now is 20 home runs in a season, then plus power is 25 to 30. I mean, I know it's double A, but he's got 14 homers in 56 games at Erie right now. So he's got pop. That's a fairly balanced park. It's not an altitude. It's not, it's Erie, Pennsylvania. Uh, literally on a lake. So yeah, he's if I want to comp him to a middle infielder, I could see Corey Seager with a little less speed.
It's pretty good.
I mean, a little lighter. He's like Corey Seager light, right? He's not going to
Yeah.
be like a 30 home run shortstop or second baseman, but he'll get you like 25 and a 280 average.
Yep. So keep an eye, those in dynasty leagues, keep an eye out on Colt Keith redraft formats this year. You don't really have to worry about him, but keep in mind for dynasty next year. Be excited about Gavin Williams. Let's pump the brakes on Kyle Harrison just a little bit for right now till he gets the command issues sorted out here. But Matt, another great Farm Friday with you. So, of course, as always, if you want more of the insight into the brain of the salesman at the prospect guru, really, especially here at Fantasy Alarm, head over to fantasyalarm.com. Matt's prospect rankings are there. And, of course, you can get in the Discord and get instant access to Matt's brain. All you got to do is a little at FA Selz, write to him. He'll answer your questions, and then you don't have to have me answering your prospect questions. So that is what you will want to do.
That felt like a little bit of a job shift plug there for you.
Yeah, I'm not great at prospect.
Please ask him.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm glad to answer it. You want the mind of our prospect guru, Matt Selz. So of course, if you're not in the Discord already, get in there, and we will love to talk to you there. But Matt, quick little thing I want to talk about here. I don't know how to word this other than saying, are the Cincinnati Reds potentially one of the scariest teams in baseball? Believe it or not.
I mean, right now they are. Does it hold? I don't know. But, like, how are you going to deal with that offense that they're running out there? I mean, Eli De La Cruz is hitting bombs. Like, balls go far when he makes contact. They just got Joey Votto back, who got a standing ovation in his first at bat, right? So he's always dangerous, whether the power is still there or not. He can always take walks and move it to the next guy. Let's not forget they have a guy named Christian Encarnacion Strand who's
never coming up.
Who for some reason is still on the farm. I don't really understand why. Like, what his strikeout rate has dropped. Okay, so he worked on that. He's still hitting baseballs hard. You still need his flexibility in the lineup there to give you another big bat.
Well, hey, Matt, he's got to learn how to play outfield.
I mean,
that's gonna buy us a couple more days before they can't call him up. He's got to learn to play outfield.
Sure. I mean, they did put him in right field, so like,
yeah, he's got to learn the position. Remember Chris Bryant? Defense isn't ready. The defense isn't ready for him. Not ready to come up yet.
I mean, yeah, but this is just getting like how much more like they're charging through the NL Central, and that's a very winnable division right now. If they make a move and get a pitcher, I saw this tweet the other day. They were like, "Oh, the Reds could look for pitchers. I wonder who's available. Maybe, I don't know, Sonny Gray or Luis Castillo." Like, ouch. That, yeah. Right now they're scary because they're letting teams get out to leads and then they're coming back on them. Like, they spotted the Rockies a 3-0 lead in Coors and came back.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at them, I mean, their offense, top 10 in WOBA and WRC plus during this little win streak they got going. Interesting thing to me when looking at it, their starters have a 4.01 ERA and a WHIP that's almost 1.5, and they've won 11 in a row, really on the back of a bullpen that's an ERA above 3, about 3.16, and they're 9 for 11 in save chances. So, like, the bullpen's been very good.
Offenses that are getting prime hits when they need them.
Yeah. So, and then when you look at this team, obviously, if Encarnacion Strand ever comes up, which he's not, I've given up on that. He's just not coming up. That's just what's going to happen at this point. I'm done. I'm done with this game. He's not coming up. He's going to be in the minors the whole year. May never come up. We may never see him in the majors. That's not an exaggeration. That's just that's what my heart's telling me, Matt. That's what my heart is telling me, that this guy's not coming up and he's just going to sit on my bench in a couple leagues that I have him. But let me ask you this. Upcoming series, obviously this win streak is going to come to an end at some point. We started talking about the streak, so obviously they're going to lose. That's just how it works. You know, you don't talk about win streaks. We're doing it right now, so they're going to lose. So let me ask, they got upcoming series with Atlanta, Baltimore, and San Diego. Going to be a tough little stretch for them. When do you think the first loss comes? What series? because I'm going to be pessimistic. So I'm going to see if you're
You
more of
said
an internal
Atlanta.
optimist than I am. Yep.
It-
It might be tonight as we're recording this on Friday. It could be tonight.
It's pretty hard to get to sweep the Braves. It's pretty hard to do. I mean, that team is real good everywhere. So
Yeah,
I'm with
and
you. Whether it's the first game or not, you're not sweeping the Braves. Not happening.
Yeah. Braves are at least taking one. I wouldn't be surprised if Braves win the series. I'm also just a sucker for that offense. So, that's
The
just
Braves
me there.
offense is deep, even with Sean Murphy's hamstring discomfort.
Yep. And man, I know we're a baseball podcast, but I got to talk about it. Over at Fantasy Alarm, our fantasy football draft guide is out. You can get access to the NFL draft guide for free when you start a free 7-day trial, or you can purchase it for $26.99. Sleepers, busts, rankings galore, bold predictions, positional breakdowns. I'll be talking about many Texans somewhere in this draft guide. So if you're like me and you want Texans content, I'll have a little bit in there for you, of course. So make sure you check that out on the site. But Matt, to wrap up this week's episode real quick here. So someone we're watching, weekend streamers and waiver wire preview. We always talk about it here on Friday. Today will be no different. So for me, I'm looking at Mike Talkman to pick up. He's hitting 325 with 2 homers, 12 runs, 8 RBIs over 11 games. His walk rate's over 16%. He's even gotten some at bats in the leadoff spot and hasn't shown a real split disadvantage this year, hitting lefties and righties well. So if your team is desperate for outfield help, take a look at Chicago's Mike Talkman. So Matt, who's a waiver wire guy you're looking at? It's actually at a position of need for many people.
Yeah. By the way, the Mike Talkman thing just reminds me that former Yankees are doing better outside of the Yankees than just look at Aaron Hicks with Baltimore, for God's sakes. Yeah, my guy that I'm picking up, if you're in a Selz league or a league in which you get credit for holds, Phil Maton is not really highly owned on Fantrax. He's like 12% owned. And I get it, holds are not a sexy stat to bank on and whatnot, but he's got 4 of them right now, which is pretty decent. His K per 9 is 10.22. Who doesn't need help in strikeouts? Okay. And he's not going to kill you in the ratios either, with a 1.46 ERA and a 0.83 whip. He's gotten a decent amount of run of late for the Astros, being a trusted guy for Dusty Baker's bullpen use. Always a good thing. Always a good thing. The Astros are in a dogfight in the AL West, which I don't think anybody really saw coming. And so they're going to need their studs in their bullpen down the stretch. Maton is one of those. He's not going to cost you very much to get, like, at all. You could basically get him for free. So that's another bonus too.
And then for the weekend streamer, this is a horrible weekend for streaming options. Matt and I agreed, so we just co-signed the 2 main streamers that we're looking at here, and it's not great. But Joey Wentz and Reese Olson for Detroit going up against Minnesota Friday, as you're probably listening to this, and Saturday. Minnesota strikes out a ton, especially a lot against lefties. I think Wentz is my preferred one to Olson, just given how bad it is. Wentz did have 9 strikeouts his last time out against Minnesota. Olson's got 2 good pitches that he can get batters out with, and has 6 or more strikeouts in 2 of his 3 starts. Olson, 29% owned in Fantrax, and Wentz is just 16% over on Fantrax. So those are our weekend streamers, our waiver wire preview, our look at the fantasy baseball landscape heading to the weekend. So, of course, use Alarm50 for 50% off 6 months of all access over at fantasyalarm.com. Gives you access to our award-winning DFS Playbook Pro, access to Discord, exclusive DFS tools. And, of course, if you're in the Discord, you can pick the brain of the prospect guru, Matt Selz, at the Selzman on Twitter. So give Matt a follow on Twitter. I'm at Colby R. Conway on Twitter. And we will see you early next week with the newest edition of the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Baseball